Hi, and welcome to Today in DeFi. And this week we're going to talk about again stablecoins market cap. So for the last week we've seen a 1.5 billion increase in the total stablecoin market cap, which amounts to 0.67%, which is good considering the total crypto market cap is down around 2.3%. So again, this week we continue to see a divergence between the total crypto market cap change and also the stable coins change. So this is actually an opportunity for some of us that is actually are invested in the market or haven't been investing in the market. So this might be an opportunity. We're going to cover some potential farms as well and interesting yields that we found on some protocols that have been gaining in TVL. But yeah, so we'll get to that later. But right now, we are seeing actually still a massive increase for USDC, around 500 million. That has been actually leading in the last two to 3 weeks that I've been covering the weekly crypto update. So every time inflow is present, it's always led by USDC. But this time, USDT has been showing some dominance against some of the coins because this week they're having a 400 million change in the last few weeks. And BlackRock's middle continues to gain 400 million asset under management. And this is before the spark inflow of around 500 billion. So this might actually be great catalyst for Boodle token. I'm not thinking it's tradable yet, but yeah, this is massive news for them. And it's inevitably going to go above 2 billion in this point. All right. So for the last few weeks, we've been seeing Sonic and some other protocols that have been performing, but we've been seeing Solana actually gaining some traction this week, which is kind of surprising to see since they're actually losing traction in the last few weeks that I've been updating them. But this week, we can see a increase in daily transactions in Solana, which is not present on the Binance chain and Ethereum. So this is actually a good catalyst for the chain as well. And the trend of the daily active addresses in Solana is actually also better than the other chains. And the stable coin transfer volume is still better on Ethereum, the trend, but everything is slowly increasing taking for the last week. However, for the DEX volume, it's yet ticking up and it's still showing a tick down on the DEX volumes on major chains. For fees generated, it's reflected on Solana here. So you can see the daily transactions here is reflected in the fees generated. So it's actually not a bad catalyst for Solana after like weeks of them not performing well prior to the meme coin being down after the bull run. But yeah, right now we're seeing Solana having a slightly better trend than the other chains, BNB. And for layer ones, it's very obvious that I can see a better trend on Sui and Berachain. We're going to cover some interesting protocols that you can form on Berachain later on, so stay tuned. But we can see here the obvious trend for Sui and Berachain here, an increase in stablecoin transfer volume for Sui, and also an increase in daily transactions in Sui as well. Whereas the other chains, they don't perform that well. However, in the DEX volume here, you can see layer ones actually gaining traction from the market, especially again Sui and Berachain, and also Sonic. But yeah, Sonic has been dominating for the last 2 to 3 weeks, and it's been still dominating until now. Yeah, can see here a massive increase in Sui for the fees generated, and it's also true for the revenue. Yeah, so it's again a great catalyst for Sui, but keep in mind this happened all after Walrus TGE and the mainnet launch, so that definitely have an effect for Sui since it's built above Sui. But yeah, overall we see a pretty decent increase in DEX volumes for the Sui network. All right, next one we're gonna move on to layer twos. For layer 2s, we can see Arbitrum outperforming the other chains, and it's also true for and it's also reflected in the daily transactions. However, there's been a substantial decrease in their stablecoin supply, around 600 million. So keep an eye on that one. However, the stablecoin transfer volume has been increasing. Yeah, nothing much for the TVLs, especially as well for the DEX volumes. It hasn't been very active compared to the layer ones we saw earlier. And it's also true for the fees and revenues generated in the overall layer 2 ecosystem. Again, ZK chains, nothing much interesting, so I'll just skip this one. And let's move on to the interesting part. So for the last 7 days, we have seen some protocols gaining some TVLs and also some chains. So first of all, we got Hemi, Tycho, Aptos, Sei, Kronos, Sonic, Berachain. But here today, I'm going to talk about maybe Aptos, Sei, and a little bit of Hemi. So let's stick to Hemi first. Hemi on 25th of March, they just launched like a draw campaign letting users to earn points by powering the Hemi DeFi ecosystem. So you can basically land like liquidity on their protocols, and these are the eligible liquidity pairs that will actually give you like 1 point for every dollar provided per day on the partner platforms which includes Sushi, Dodo, Izumi, and OQ. So you can earn multipliers for pairs with rates based on the ecosystem relevance. So these here are the eligible liquidity pairs if you are interested in farming this pools and airdrop. Can also do tons of stablecoin farms in Hemi as well. For example, on layer bank, we can see here increase in TVL is seen on Hemi. And if you zoom in a little bit, the tokens that are experiencing inflow is actually IBTC, which IBTC is actually part of the eligible liquidity pairs here on Hemi. By value, obviously, Hemi staking has been the one gaining the most TVLs, and the tokens are actually USDT going into the protocol for Hemi staking. Right. And that's it for Hemi. I gotta move on to Sei. So a really good looking chart for the TVL on Sei here. Strong uptrend, and it's been very consistent comparing to the other charts for the TVL on other layer ones. Yeah, this week we can see Avalon Labs gaining the highest TVL by value if we're looking at it above 5 million, because this protocol is too small for us to cover. So just cover Avalon Labs first. So actually Avalon Labs just had their airdrop campaign that they just launched with Bybit that lets you to gain like AVL tokens. So they have a massive price pool of 55,000 in AVL tokens. Your task is to actually trade in the DEX, maybe provide some liquidity. Yeah, there are a lot of campaigns going on for Avalon. On top of that, we can see like staking AVL is now also live just currently. So this actually provides more value as well to the token price for AVL, but it's very speculative and a high risk. So please do do your own research, do your own risk management if you are actually interested in this farming method. Yep. All right. So next one we got Aptos. So for Aptos, we got some interesting farms actually from some smaller protocols, like for example, Jewel Finance. Jewel Finance is native DEX on Aptos, and the inflows is dominated by STAPT. For reference, STAPT from Emerald Finance is now earning the highest deposit APY, which consists of 11.21%. Inside of APR is almost 8% staking APR and also 3% of ABT incentive APR. So this might be interesting for some of you guys who are holding a lot of ABT. And if you want to gain yield on your ABT tokens, here are actually some interesting pools that you can participate on. All right. Also, for ABT, sorry, we can see, I think I covered Econ for the last 2 weeks, but it's been continuing to grow in TVL. Again, in their dashboards, we can see which tokens are actually taking inflows. And obviously, right here, people are really interested in the SUSDE. And if we validate that data, the inflows from Econ is actually gained from SUSDE. So the supply APR is right now almost 15%, which 8% consists of APT and 6% in Ethena staking APR. So yeah, the Bor APR is also quite high on this one as well, which the total supply now is amounting to 79.5 million, which is the highest of the pools right now on Aptos on Econ markets. And also for superposition, we can see here an increase in USDT inflows on TOS. And if you can see on superpositions app, if you land your USDT here, you can get an APR of 4.84% of lending APR. And on top of that, you can get like 3.27% of ABT rewards. So in total, you can get 8.11% here, which is quite interesting for some people, which is reflected on the high influence of USDT going on into superposition. Again, this is a little bit smaller than Econ, so please do your own research and risk management when farming on these protocols. All right. So lastly, we got Berachain. So on Berachain, we can see mainly two protocols, which is for Berber and also Euler V2. I think I also covered Euler V2. It's been a very interesting protocol to format. I think Sonic is also quite trending on Euler V2, and now Berachain has also gained traction as well in Euler V2. But first, we're gonna see on Berber, see which tokens are actually gaining inflows in Berber. You can see here we got NEC, Honey, and Bera. If we take a look more on the Berber, the apps, we can see very interesting APR on this stablecoin multi-stable pool. So it consists of NECT, USDCE, and Honey, which gives you around 29% of APR, which consists of 9% W Bera APR and also Burr points APR. So yeah, looks like the trading volumes on this pool has been really high, which is the highest since the launch. For the last week, it's been giving like around almost more than 30 million volumes only in the last week. So yeah, very interesting pool to actually format, especially with this 29% APR in the form of Bera tokens. That's for Berber. And for Euler, you can see here a high TVL increase on Euler for Berachain. And if we observe the ecosystem on Euler's app, we can see here a very interesting pool from Nect against Honey, pool that gives you a leveraged form of 65.57%, which gives you a 15.16% supply APY right now. Yeah, I think that's interesting for you guys that are more risk averse and more focused on stable firms. This might be an interesting farms for you. All right, so that's it for this week's weekly crypto update and ecosystem analysis. And subscribe for more. Check out our newsletter for interesting news and forums that is completely free and updated daily. All right, so link is below in this video. All right, that's it for today, and thank you.